Good evening and welcome to Legacy After the Locker Room podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Bradham, here tonight with five-year NFL alumni, Sam Barrington. Good evening, Sam.
Good evening. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and let's just tell our audience right up front, there's a reason, folks, that Sam doesn't have his camera on. If you're listening to the podcast, you're not going to notice, but if you're watching the live stream, Sam just got off an airplane, got home, and is putting the kids down. So, Sam, I think all of our viewers, all of our listeners get that. Tell us a little bit about your family. How many kids and where'd you come from?
Right. So I got two kids. I got a 12-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old daughter, Samari and Ya. I'm from the city of Jacksonville. I live in Orlando, Florida right now. And I was born in Orlando, but I grew up in Jacksonville. And when people ask me where I'm from, I typically say Jacksonville. I have a very large family between both of my parents. And I do have some African descent in my family from my father's side. And yeah, so family is very important to me. When I'm not working, I'm typically spending my time with family or working. And yeah, so one of my daughters, she actually runs track and she has her dad's height and athletic genes. And I think my youngest daughter, we haven't seen what she's going to do from an athletic standpoint yet, but she definitely has her dad's personality and her mom's beauty, which I'm thankful for. So,
Sam, I think that's great. And I just, on behalf of our Sports Philanthropy Network and Legacy After the Locker Room community, I think I can speak for everybody when I say that we believe that athletes are regular people, and I have so much respect and support for a man who got off of an airplane and has a 2-year-old daughter and is still taping a podcast to give back to the community. So I want to say thank you, and I want to get right into the show. Sam, tell us a little bit about your story. Sports as a little boy, how did they affect you, and how did you get started playing sports?
right. So for me, I grew up in a very underprivileged area, and it was. I remember we were actually driving with my mom one day, and we saw a sign that said, football signups. And for us, it was second nature because we had always played football while we were outside. And at this point, it was just an opportunity to play an organized sport. And so we asked our mom to sign us up. And fortunately, even though the area was underprivileged and most families couldn't afford it, the park was kind of giving out scholarships, right? So they were giving out scholarships to about 20 different kids. And the scholarship essentially consisted of them covering your uniform, your physical, and any other fees that might come with you playing on the team. And so it was a great situation, and that was at the age of 6. And I always tell people I played football for 21 years from the time I was 6 to 27 years old. And I played every year of my life up until then. And, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a way out, but it was. It was for me and so many other people, although a lot of people who lived in the same area as I didn't make it out.
Sam, that resonates with me, and I share this story a lot. When I was a little girl, I came home from school with a flyer for softball for mini maids and another one for band. And I wanted to be the world's best alto sax player, right? And I wanted to be this great, like, first base or third base kind of girl. And I told my mom, I've got this stuff, I'm all set. And she said, Kill, I can only afford one, and that's a stretch. We don't have money for this. And I chose softball, but I think it's so important that, we understand healthy kids, sports is a big part of that. Teamwork, leadership, sports is a big part. So, Sports Philanthropy Network, that's one of our pillars is access to sports. So thank you for bringing that up. Obviously, you were pretty good, right? You ended up going to South Florida, and was that a full ride for you, Sam?
Right. So believe it or not, when I was a young kid, I mean, obviously we all know football teams, you have to be, and I remember it like it was yesterday, but if it's 11 kids about to play and the teams are going to be 5-on-5. They can't be 5-on-6, right? And if there were 11 kids, I was always the odd man out, because I was not good early on, right? When we'd play around the neighborhood. And so, but I continued to get better and I continued to grow into my personality. And then for me, I was kind of tall at a young age. So it kind of set me apart. And in sports, we always say, uh, you can teach, you can teach somebody how to play football, but you can't teach height and speed. And so, with that being said, I was fortunate enough to have the measurables, and then over time, I developed a talent for the game of football. And I went to the University of South Florida on a full ride scholarship. I chose the University of South Florida over several other large Division I universities, and primarily went to the University of South Florida because of the opportunity, its proximity to home, and then also opportunities for alumni post graduation. And so I'm definitely proud to say that there's a lot of good things going on for me and my company because of the proximity of the University of South Florida.
And I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit and then I'll bounce back because I know everybody's going to want to hear your NFL story. But you have not one degree from South Florida. You actually have two, correct?
Correct. So I graduated in May of 2021 with my second degree from the University of South Florida with an executive master's of business administration. And it was an awesome experience. It changed my life forever. And I'm forever thankful that I will go back and get a second degree and kind of finish out my goals and obviously further my education.
I love that. And I want to spend a decent amount of time on this podcast talking about switching goals and figuring it out and what that looks like. But before we do that, let's take a second to remind our listeners that this is the Legacy After the Locker Room. I'm your host, Kayla Brett. I'm here today with NFL 5-year alumni Sam Barrington. We are powered by the Sports Philanthropy Network. Sam, before we talk about what that MBA path looked like for you and what you're doing now, let's talk a little bit about getting into the NFL. As you can see, guys, I'm wearing my Green Bay Packers sweatshirt today. Sam, tell us a little bit about, coming over to the Packers. And I know you played for a couple of other teams. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Right. So, it was pretty amazing. I remember the first time the first time I was in high school and I just kind of saw college being a reality for me. I was in ninth grade and we had just lost a game 21-0, and we were coming back on a bus ride. And I just remember, I'm going to play in college as a result of me being able to play football. And then, it came true. And then I remember the first time where I was in college and I had the thought of playing in the NFL. And for me, I was always focused on the now and never was looking too far down the line. And I was able to accomplish my dream of making it to the NFL. And I was drafted by the Green Bay Packers in the 7th round. And it was an awesome experience. It was everything you can ask for. And I was able to live a lot of life at a young age. So now, I'm kind of like the old guy amongst my friends because I was able to do so much. I traveled the world. I met a ton of people, obviously made a ton of money, and, learned a lot about myself and some of the things that were special and near and dear to my heart. So that way, as I'm growing into a man, not only could I instill these things in my kids, but I can kind of reflect on my experience in the NFL and set the stage for my life after football.
And speaking about growing into a man, I saw this on Wikipedia and I've never asked you personally. Green Bay Packers nominated you for the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award.
Correct. So in 2014, in 2015, I was nominated for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. And I was a candidate. I did not win the award for the NFL, but to even be in the same conversation as some of those great men, it was a true honor. And, got to spend time at the NFL honors and announced the draft pick for the Green Bay Packers that same year. It was truly an amazing experience, and essentially that award is an award that you get when you earn your teammates' respect, but not only your teammates, the individuals in the building as well. And so that was also one of the things that I'm very proud of and that I'll always reflect on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Sam. It's a privilege for me every year with Sports Philanthropy Network. I'm able to go down and attend the breakfast, the award breakfast, and just watching the gentlemen who receive those awards and the people who are in the audience. It gives me shivers down my back to realize how much they've contributed not only to their team but also to their community and what kind of sacrifice that takes, because it means it's time that you're not with your family. It's time when you're not doing something else or just chilling and relaxing. Sam, what were some of the things that you believe are the reason that you were nominated for that Walter Payton Award nominee?
I honestly believe a lot of it was a result of, just being the guy that kind of brightens up the room. And I don't necessarily mean with jokes or just being a loudmouth guy, but when you're the guy that other people can kind of go to and lean on, that says a lot because a lot of time, we go through life and we need help, etc., but we don't have those people around us. And so sometimes, don't get me wrong, the world needs followers, but the world needs leaders too. And ever since I was a kid, I always stepped forward and took the opportunity to lead. In addition to that, I suffered a pretty significant injury, but I decided to stay in town and not leave town to rehab. And so, me staying in town, I think that also earned the respect of my teammates because they watched me endure, what I was going through, and it was just an amazing experience. I think, lastly, you talk about uh, the off the field. Uh, the off the field reasons. I mean, I spend a ton of time in the community, just giving back to the community and donating money and spending my time in the neighborhood in the city of Green Bay, helping people with just different in different avenues. So I think that's probably the main reason that I was nominated for the Walter Payton.
I love it, Sam. So I gotta ask, most of our listening community knows that my charity of choice is Special Olympics. What what charities are dear to your heart, Sam? What do you support?
Well, primarily big brothers, big sisters. I never had an older sibling in the same house when I was growing up. Uh, and I understand the importance of it, and not just an older sibling, but an older brother. And so for me, at a young age, I benefited from the Big Brother Big Sister program, and it was amazing because there was an older guy who was able to come in and just offer me some insight about life, offer me some insight about different experiences they had, and it really helped me. It really helped shape me as a young man. Um, I think beyond that, when you consider what's going on in some of the underprivileged areas in America, is food insecurities. So any charities or organizations that focus on reducing food insecurities all around America is one of the things that's also very important to me. And I think lastly is I think lastly is the Shriners Hospital, especially one located here in Tampa, specifically because those kids sometimes, they have terminal illnesses. And if you can put a smile on their face, that's very special. And I've had the opportunity to do that on several occasions.
Wow. Great charities. You kind of leave me speechless just thinking about that as a parent and, remind me, count my blessings for health and safety children. So, Sam, you talked about big brothers, big sisters, and you had a mentor and who could steer you in the right direction, give you some advice. That, I'm imagining, became pretty important after your career ended. because you did a 180 for a career path. I think you have my 7-year-old son's dream job. Tell our listeners what it is that you are doing now that you have your master's of business administration. What are you doing, Sam?
Right. So primarily, I'm a business owner. My company services the construction industry, and we specialize in heavy equipment rental. But in addition to that, I'm also a sports analyst, and I am contracted by the University of South Florida as a color analyst. This is year 4, and I travel with the University of South Florida as well, making sure that I'm giving the fans an accurate display of what's going on, working with my co-host Jim Lauk, and it's truly an amazing experience, especially having the opportunity to work for my alma mater.
I love it. I wish we were all so fortunate. So when I guess I just have to ask, it's always interesting to me. Everybody who plays professional sports knows that their time is limited, and most people know the average career in the NFL is 3 years. You played 5. So number one, holy smokes, with a major injury. But how did you decide construction? What was it that made you say, like, that's what I'm going to do?
Well, my father is actually in the construction industry, and so that's the reason I got into it. But when you talk about where the country is headed from an infrastructure standpoint, uh, as the dollar grows and as we develop cryptocurrencies and you know as different financial avenues become available to us as consumers, and not only consumers but producers as well, the country is naturally going to grow from a development and an infrastructure standpoint because there's just more liquid cash floating around. um, and so you talk about industries that are always booming. Obviously it's going to be the healthcare industry, it's natural energy and resources industries, anything related to travel and aviation, and then construction and development. And again, it's a very blossoming industry. Obviously, with the new infrastructure bill that's been announced by the current administration, it presents opportunities for not only current business owners, but new business owners who are looking to benefit and grow companies in the construction and development industries.
I think that's so cool. Oh my gosh. So Sam, let me ask you, COVID hurt a lot of people. We're seeing this huge rise in side hustles. Seems like, I go to the coffee shop, and in fact, my local coffee shop just started opening up at 8 o'clock in the morning yesterday because they can't get staff. So Sam, for anybody who quote unquote hates their job, who's miserable, who really wants to make a career change and not sure, can they make their dream come true? Would you just share a little bit of your wisdom and a little bit of your heart with those people and speak to them?
Yeah, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do that. I mean, I think one of the most important things for us as people in life is to find out why you're here. Now, the challenge is not everybody is spiritual, not everybody is religious, right? But for me, I'm just going to kind of give an example. As a spiritual man, right, I think one of the first things you have to develop before you call yourself a man is understanding your why. And then once you understand what your why is, you can live your life based on your why. And so every day you wake up, there's a goal in mind because you understand what your why is. And your every day you wake up, you're going towards your why, right? For some people, their why might not be related to a career. It might not be related to any type of finances. But I can guarantee you, those things enhance and those things also kind of couple with the reason why you're living life. And the other thing is when you can be a part of something special, I think that's also amazing. There are companies out there that really just want to build something awesome and change the world in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And so if you can be a part of that by any means, I mean, that's just a no brainer. And for people who want to make more money, if you go get more skills, you'll make more money. You can't just make more money and just think that somebody's just going to pay you more because you just asked for more. Because the reality is they have their financial goals, they have budgets and stuff that they need to stick to as well. But if you get more skills, people can't deny you. And essentially, you're going to be a hot commodity. So people are going to want to pay you based upon the skills that you provide. Um, I enjoy working. I think one of the reasons why I work as hard as I do is because of football, and some of the skills football taught me. Um, and so it's you develop a skill set and you deploy that skill set, and that's what it looks like. Now, I also will say, and one of the things I'm guilty of sometimes, most of the time, is overworking. So I think just as well, it's as important to find your why and go out and work and et cetera, provide for your family. I think it's also important, very important, to get the me time. And that's something that I'm working on myself, is just having more me time, which is time with myself and time with my family.
And I think that's pretty cool. So, in your LinkedIn bio, which is so great, just to put it right up on LinkedIn, enjoys golfing and fishing. And I think you bring up such a great point. It can't be all work and no play. It has to be work hard, play hard. Sam, are you able to get away, or are you just trenched in the construction business?
Well, pretty much, for instance, in construction. When I travel, I kind of travel big. Here over the last few years, I've done London, Germany, Paris, Dubai, Africa, Cabo, Dominican Republic, Costa Rica. I've been fortunate enough to travel. Las Vegas. I've been really fortunate to travel some neat places. Uh, and then also doing the color commentary and the broadcasting on the side. It gives me an opportunity to, kind of get back to football and enjoy that part of Sam Barrington as well. But I would like to travel more. But obviously, there's a sacrifice that has to take place now before that can happen.
And so I want to talk about finding balance because I think it's something that most people struggle with. Before I do, I just want to remind our listeners this is the Legacy After the Locker Room podcast, and we're powered by Sports Philanthropy Network here tonight with 5-year NFL veteran Sam Barrington. If you want to follow Sam on Instagram, he's got a ton of followers, Sam Barrington. And if you're a business professional looking to connect with Sam, you can find him on LinkedIn at Sam Barrington MBA. So, again, for anyone listening to the podcast, Sam Barrington MBA on LinkedIn and Sam Barrington on Instagram. Sam, how do you find balance? How do you find that work hard, play hard set that really brings equilibrium to your life?
Right. So great question. And that's something that I'm still working on myself. I think it's something as simple as writing it down and write down what's important to you. For so long, you're in elementary school and they hand you a planner and they give you a planner so you can plan out your life. Don't lose that skill. Continue to plan your life out. Continue to uh, put it in layman's terms and find a way to organize yourself to the point where you don't have to overwork yourself, right? And you can go and do what's happening. I think that's the best balance when you can work and produce, but at the same time, you have the free time to do what makes you happy. And that's something that like I said, I'm still working on, but over time, it's coming surely but slowly but surely.
So you said something, and it's do what makes you happy. And one of the things that makes me very, very happy is the ability that I have in my job to speak with great people such as yourself
Thank
and
you.
really share wisdom with the community. You're very, very welcome. As part of that, I get to ask every guest to partner with me on behalf of my charity of choice, Special Olympics, and ask them for an autograph donation. Sam, would you be willing to make a
Of
donation to
course.
Special Olympics? I
Of
love
course.
it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we only have about 5 minutes left, Sam. I want to ask you one question, then I want to give you just a couple of minutes, for your parting thoughts and wisdom. But I'm really curious. You've played for a number of teams. You've played college football, all the way up through grade school, high school. Sam, can you tell us about the best coach you ever had?
Wow. Um, I had amazing coaches all throughout. I can't necessarily say, one was better than the other. I mean, maybe so. Um, I think, one of the best things a coach ever mentioned to me is football is not a matter of life and death, but it teaches you how to deal with life and death. And I can say that's probably the best football related quote I ever heard. And it's a quote that's still relevant to my life as a 31-year-old man. Today's actually my birthday. As a 31-year-old man, just some of the things I learned in football, it's just helping me kind of walk the path of life now, whether it's perseverance, whether it's communication, whether it's teamwork, all of those things I learned from the game. And I'm able to use those qualities and skills still to this day. And I think that's one of the coolest things about life.
Great wisdom and happy birthday to you. I'd sing, but then we'd have to edit that out of the podcast because I promise nobody wants to hear that. But happy birthday to you. I hope you had a great day celebrating. Were you able to do something special with your wife and children?
Yes, sir. Yes, actually, we went on a picnic, so that was pretty fun. Didn't last as long as I would have liked it to, but it was amazing. So,
That's fantastic. Happy birthday once again. Sam, take just a few minutes if you don't mind. And I'm sure there's a question that I should have asked you and that I didn't, or something that's welling up or you're thinking about that you're like, if I had this platform to speak to people, this is what I'd want them to know. What is that message, Sam?
uh, honestly, I believe we live in a world where we're all distracted. Um, I think we're distracted. I think we're distracted, not only by social media. Social media is a gift and a curse because it connects us, and it keeps us connected. Um, but it's a distraction because it's almost like we live in a world where everybody is attracted to instant gratification and external validation. Um, and it's kind of weird because I can't imagine myself sitting down somewhere and feeling like I need to take a picture, post it on the internet. Uh, but I understand that that's the world we live in now. So I think beyond anything, I just encourage people to just kind of find out what's distracting you and what is it distracting you from, and spend time focusing on those things, because there may be some very quality and essential lessons and experiences that you're missing out on because you're distracted. And you don't want to live your life and get to a point where you're too old to take advantage or experience those things, because we all only have a certain amount of time where we can get certain stuff done, right? And I think it's just important that we all get to experience those things that are available to us, those quality things in life. But you can't do it if you're distracted. So just find out what's distracting you, rid your life of that distraction, and that's when life begins, in my opinion.
Seize the time. That's great advice, Sam. We're just about out of time. I'll give you just a few seconds to thank and shout out the people in your life that deserve your accolades.
My parents. My parents are nowhere near perfect, but I love them dearly, and I've learned a lot of lessons from them both, good and bad. I have a lot of siblings, and I love them dearly. Uh, my kids, my friends, my significant other, all the coaches that coach me, my professors at my university, South Florida, business associates who have mentored me as a young business professional. Uh, yeah, it's just a ton of people I could think it goes on and on. And I have a big network of people who support me just for no reason at all, other just than, hey, I just like Sam, and I'm just going to support Sam. And so I
And
don't take
Sam,
those things for granted at all. I don't take those things for granted at all.
you're truly one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Just so go with the flow and easygoing. But at the same time, I think you're a very old, wise young man. To be your age and to have so much wisdom and to be willing to share it and impart it with the legacy after the locker room community. I'm so grateful for that. And I want to say thank you. My name is Kayla Bradham. I'm your host here tonight with NFL 5-year alumni Sam Barrington, reminding you to live your legacy. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Kayla. I appreciate the opportunity to be on today.
You bet.